Details tonight on a twist in the search for a couple missing in the outback.
Jennie Kehlet went missing in the Goldfields near Sandstone. Her husband Raymond was found at the bottom of a 12-metre abandoned mine shaft, but Jennie had disappeared.
Any progress is good progress, and obviously the police have been busy with this in the background. Hopefully something comes of it.
At this point in time, we're not seeing anything that suggests criminality.
Are you serious?
Yes.
We've only got one side of the story.
We find Jennie, we will find out what happened.
It just doesn't happen out here. It's not normal behaviour.
Did you deliberately mislead the police about where you went with Ray and Jennie in Sandstone in March 2015?
No. It's not like them. They're experienced. They are not lost. Something terrible has happened.
Welcome to Some Kind of Closure, a podcast series focused on unsolved missing persons cases. Around 38,000 people are reported missing each year in Australia. Thankfully, most of these cases are resolved. In this series, however, we'll be focusing on the small percentage of cases that remain unsolved over several years. We'll explore the complexities and impact on the families involved, who at the end of the day are desperate for some answers and ultimately some kind of closure. Please be aware that this show deals with some distressing themes and may include content and language that some listeners will find distressing. In Season 1 of Some Kind of Closure, we'll be focusing on the perplexing case of missing campers Ray and Jennie Kehlet, who never returned from a prospecting trip they took to a remote region of Western Australia in March of 2015. A decade is a painfully long time to be living with the unknown, and it's my hope that this series will help shine a light on this case and open up conversations that will ultimately lead to some clarity and justice for Ray and Jennie's family. A year after the fateful camping trip of March 2015, the families of Ray and Jennie Kehlet released a statement to the media via WA Police with a desperate plea to the public for information. This is the statement read by Ray's brother David.
It has been 12 months since Ray and Jennie left home to travel north on their fateful prospecting trip. These 12 months have taken a heavy toll on their family and friends. Much speculation and sensationalism of Ray and Jennie's story has been made over this last year, which is an unfortunate consequence of such a mystery. We wish to clarify that it has been the family and friends' belief from early on that foul play was involved, although the motivations for such a thing to occur to them are inexplicable. Ray and Jennie were a hard-working, family-orientated, loving couple with hearts of gold who travelled to Sandstone primarily to get away from it all, and secondly with the simple hopes of striking it rich. The subsequent events and lack of closure have been devastating. Although we now have Ray in body and have celebrated his life through a funeral, we still do not have Jennie back, nor are we any closer to finding out what may have happened to both Ray and Jennie. We are in close contact with police and are confident that they are pursuing all available leads. Unfortunately, due to the location and duration of time, little evidence to explain the circumstances has so far come to light. We know that Ray and Jennie left home on March 19, 2015 and drove north via the Paynes Find to Sandstone Road to their prospecting camp at Bell Chambers, which is near Tabletop, approximately 30 kilometres south of the town of Sandstone. They were reported last seen at the camp on March 22, 2015. Their dog Ella was located in Sandstone on March 28, prompting a missing persons report and subsequent searches. Their camp was found set up and with no evidence of struggle. Ray's body was found at the bottom of a disused mine shaft a week later, approximately 2 kilometres north of their camp. Despite several searches to date, Jennie has not been found, nor have there been any answers to how Ray may have met his fate. We would encourage anyone who may still have legitimate information or may have been in the Bell Chambers or Tabletop area mid to late March to please come forward. We are ever hopeful for answers when they may be available.
Western Australia boasts one of the richest gold deposits on the planet, and to this day, gold mining continues to create vast amounts of wealth for the state and the country. It all began in 1893 when Paddy Hannon stumbled upon a patch of gold so rich near Kalgoorlie that it became known as the Golden Mile, one of the richest gold deposits in the world. Gold fever swept through the state as thousands of hopefuls flooded into the region chasing fortune and riches. A major challenge became getting enough fresh water out to the region to support the influx of people. So the government, under the guidance of its forward-thinking engineer-in-chief, C.Y. O'Connor, undertook one of the boldest infrastructure projects in Australian history, building the world's longest freshwater pipeline to carry life-sustaining water over 500 kilometres from the Perth Hills all the way to the Goldfields in Kalgoorlie, in what became known as the Golden Pipeline. This audacious plan worked and the town boomed. The Goldfields didn't just fuel individual dreams, they funded the development of Western Australia and helped build the nation. More than a century later, the Golden Pipeline is still in use and the Golden Mile is still being mined. The gigantic hole in the ground that continues to grow every day has become known as the Super Pit. It's a hole now so big it's easily visible from space. About 900,000 ounces of gold are harvested here each year, which at current gold prices equates to about $4.5 billion per annum. The hole is approximately 3.7 kilometres long, 1.5 kilometres wide, and around 480 metres deep. It's an operation that continues to dig for gold 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, using massive machinery that has to be seen to be believed. With gold's ever-increasing value, the pastime of amateur prospecting has seen a resurgence in recent years, fueled by popular reality TV shows like Aussie Gold Hunters. Even though the old-timers found most of the surface gold, there are still significant patches to be found to this day. A recent find includes the story of two longtime mates prospecting in the Sandstone region in June of 2025 on a day neither of them will forget. While prospecting just outside of town, they came across a 1-ounce nugget, but that was just the beginning. Later in the day, their metal detector picked up a significant signal, and just below the surface, they pulled out a 895-gram nugget valued at approximately $160,000. The stunned prospectors continued to search and finished the day with another 1-ounce nugget. Stories like these fuel the imaginations of seasoned prospectors and newcomers alike. The allure of potential riches while adventuring and camping in the outback of Australia can be intoxicating, and gold fever is still a very real phenomenon. The president of APLA, the Amalgamated Prospectors and Leaseholders Association, James Allison, explains.
And it was gold. That's what they're here for, all for the gold. Gold's a funny thing that you will always get the one person that'll brag about it and show you a piece. But 95% of the real bona fide, genuine prospectors will just say, yeah, I've got a bit, I found a bit. They don't go into any detail. But the other thing too, a lot of people, you've got to have a sort of, not an understanding, but an appreciation of the bush. You know, this country is unbelievably unique. You've got to have a bit of that adventure streak.
It was the allure of gold that took hold of experienced campers Ray and Jennie Kehlet and compelled them to embark on a journey with their workmate to this very region 10 years ago in hopes of striking it rich. After months of research and anticipation, the group had found a patch of land they were convinced would earn each of them $1 million, dubbing it the $3 million patch. When I asked James Allison about the $3 million patch, I was surprised to learn he'd heard of it, but did not believe it was anything other than a regional myth, comparing it to the legendary Lassiter's Reef of the Northern Territory.
I think if you find Lassiter's Reef, you'll find this $3 million patch. That's honest. Lassiter's Reef is famous up in the Northern Territory. Supposed to be this big blow of solid gold. It's a myth. It's a bit like the $3 million patch around here. That's a myth. I think that was about a 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock talk at the pub one night. That's where it started from, I think.
However, for Ray and Jennie, the $3 million patch represented something very real, and they were hopeful they would find gold. Finding a significant patch of gold would enable them to quit their mining jobs and focus full-time on running their farm in Beverley. The group had devised a unique method they'd be utilising to give them access to gold that had been left behind in abandoned mine shafts, and had been training and preparing to abseil into these abandoned shafts in the hope of striking it rich under the guidance of their experienced prospecting work friend and safety officer, Graham Milne. Sadly, this was not to be, with the trip ending in tragedy, with only one of the campers ever returning home. To this day, however, the question remains unanswered. Did the group ever find any gold? Was this the foundation of a potential motive for what was to ultimately turn into a tragedy? What we do know from the subsequent police interviews and coroner's inquest is that one of the three campers did have significant prospecting experience and had visited the sandstone region many times in the past. Graham Milne was very clearly the expert on this particular expedition, and it was clear in the text messages and emails in the lead up to the trip that both Ray and Jennie would be reliant on him and his expertise in both prospecting and also abseiling into abandoned mine shafts. Graham was a member of APLA, the Amalgamated Prospectors and Leaseholders Association, and had been on a number of trips with the group to the sandstone region prior to 2015. Groups like these are a wealth of information for newcomers and provide members with many benefits, such as gaining access to particular leases that would otherwise be difficult to obtain. They also offer advice and training for new prospectors around the very real physical dangers inherent in the pastime.
One is the isolation, right? If you're not prepared, seriously, properly prepared, as beautiful as this country is and the bush is, it can bite you and bite you hard. And you've seen in recent years on TV and everything of people getting stranded, tragic loss, prospectors getting lost and disappearing, or they're finding them and they've passed away. That's because they haven't taken the basic steps. As we know, the most important thing you've got to carry all the time is water, and a lot of it. Yeah, because out here you'll dehydrate within hours. But then a lot of people you talk to, they say, "Oh, but I'll take my phone." Well, I liken it to taking a piece of dry bread with you. Your phone's as good as a bit of dry bread. It's not going to save you because there's no communication out here. You know, it's something in the city you can rely on, but in the bush, forget it. You may get a signal, you may not, so you don't rely on it.
Gaining permissions for prospecting in Australia is anything but a straightforward endeavour. And if the correct permissions and permits are not obtained, prospectors can fall foul of both the law and other prospectors if they are found to be detecting for gold in areas they do not have permission to do so. It can be overwhelming for beginners to know if they have taken the correct steps and if they are possibly going to get in trouble for detecting in the wrong areas. If found to be prospecting on someone else's lease, equipment may be confiscated and fines applied. Beyond the legalities, there is also a plethora of myths and legends around outback towns of territorial characters who make threats to people's lives and property if they encroach onto their leases. It's a potential minefield for newcomers and can be very intimidating. These issues were seemingly weighing on Ray's mind in the lead up to the trip, as was made evident in several emails and text messages to Graham, where Ray wanted to confirm they did in fact have the correct permissions in place to be exploring the areas they'd planned on going. In an email dated 16th of February 2015, about a month before the trip, Ray wrote to Graham seeking clarification on the exact coordinates of the lease they were planning on exploring. The email reads, Can I get the 4 corner coordinates of the lease so I can map for you and also look at the tracks to the hole as I get them real clear? Graham responded the next day on 17th of February 2015, seemingly avoiding a clear answer on the question and instead commenting on the weather, along with an attachment from the Bureau of Meteorology saying, "We might not get any of this at the hole, but it should hit us at work." 8 days later, having still not received a clear answer from Graham, Ray, still seemingly concerned about permissions, emailed Graham once again after doing some research of his own into who held the lease rights in the area. He had been doing his own research using a tool called Tengraph. Tengraph is an online mapping system run by the WA government that shows exactly who has the rights to explore or mine different areas of land in Western Australia. In an email on 24th of February 2015, Ray says to Graham regarding his concerns, "Was looking at Tengraph today. The area we have earmarked is under exploration license application by Bruce Robert or Venus Metals. How does that affect us as you already have the prospectors thingy? It did say it's pending, but according to my Google investigations, it doesn't show you there. What are the mines people up to with your application? Cheers, Ray." And again, just days before leaving on the trip, it's apparent that Ray is still concerned about ensuring the correct permissions are in place and asked Graham for the specific coordinates of the lease, letting Graham know he'd like to take a photo that they could all sign to place in the hole they'd be exploring. A seemingly unorthodox practice, but one that was an apparent attempt to show any other prospectors that their group had the right to what had been found in the hole. In a text exchange on 16th of March 2015, just days before the trip, Ray says to Graham, "Hey mate, if you can get the coordinates of the lease pegs, I'm going to do a photo for all of us to sign, can go with the photo down the hole. Cheers mate, looking forward to getting out of this joint." He followed up with another text later by saying to Graham, "It probably doesn't matter, as not going to be going down holes without you anyways." When I queried experienced prospector Doug Taylor about the photo, he responded via email on the 4th of July 2025, saying, "In regards to the photo, it sounds to me that Graham told Ray that there is definitely something down that hole. Maybe along the lines of he previously found it and needed help to get it out, as this is the only reason for a photo. Normally of a large or good find, and this would seem to match why they were learning to abseil." Based on the email and text exchanges, it's clear that Ray and Jennie were depending on Graham's experience. Ray's mixture of uncertainty and concern was also evident in his correspondence with the Shire of Sandstone in the lead up to the trip. In the coronial inquest, it was found that Ray had been in regular contact with Mr. Robert Moss of the Shire of Sandstone in the lead up to the trip regarding whether or not the Sandstone Paynes Find Road would be accessible on account of the recent storms in the region. Mr. Moss had closed the road which led to the campsite from Sandstone between the 2nd to the 13th of March due to flooding, and in Mr. Moss's evidence, he stated that Ray had telephoned him almost every day asking when the roads would be reopened. The coroner suggested in her findings that the fateful prospecting trip had been attended to with some urgency, as there was a suggestion that another person or entity was seeking prospecting rights over the area Ray, Jennie and Graham were planning on exploring. It's important to note here that the group had attempted to get to the Bell Chambers campsite south of Sandstone on an earlier trip taken on March 4th, 2015, in what became known as the wet trip during the 2020 coroner's inquiry. The group had gotten 30 kilometres away from Mount Magnet when it became apparent the weather would make access to the campsite impossible, so they headed home and agreed to try again on March 19th. It's also important to note that both of these trips are quite a bit earlier than most recreational prospectors would typically visit the area due to the lingering heat from summer. Doug Taylor, who manages the Paynes Find Roadhouse, recalls the group coming through for this very reason. They were the first group he noted coming through for the season, and other than Graham Milne, Doug was one of the last people to see Ray and Jennie alive.
I seen them in the morning they come through on their way out there, because when you see a couple of carloads of prospectors pull up, you always pay attention. But good 30, 35 degree days, so sort of not the big influx of tourists or detector people, prospectors out at that stage. So they're sort of, when the first few caravans are going up north, you sort of pay attention. Oh yeah, they've started already, and owning the pub, you always sort of take a bit of notice of who's coming and going, sort of thing, I suppose. But yeah.
Secrecy is not uncommon when it comes to prospecting. So when it came to this trip, Ray and Jennie's children recall that their parents were reluctant to tell them exact details of where they'd be going, as Graham had asked them to keep the location a secret. In a 2015 story for Channel 7's Sunday night program, Alex Cullen asked Jennie's kids, Darcy and Kelly, about the secrecy surrounding the trip.
Did they tell you where they were going? They didn't. It was all kept very hush-hush in typical prospecting fashion. The idea of not giving away the secret spots was reasonably high priority.
I think because prospecting, you don't want people to know where your big thing is. If you found the $1 million payload, you're not going to be telling anybody else about it.
When questioned about this during the coroner's inquest, Graham said it was in fact Ray who wanted to keep the location what he referred to as secret squirrel. These are his words, but not his voice.
Did you talk to Ray and Jennie at any point about whether they should talk to anyone else about your trip to Sandstone?
No. Ray wanted to keep it, as he called it, secret squirrel.
Ray wanted to keep it secret squirrel?
Yes, he didn't want anybody to know.
What would you say to the proposition that you wanted to keep it secret squirrel?
No, not me.
If the witness could be shown Exhibit 3, Tab 5, Graham, do you know Darcy James Keegans?
I met Darcy once.
Yes, and who is he?
One of Jennie's boys.
And you will see that he has provided a witness statement to police.
I see that, yes.
Would you agree that Darcy's evidence is that his parents told him that you had made them promise not to reveal the location where they were prospecting, as it was a secret? Is that what it says?
That's what it says, but no, that's not correct.
Why do you say that?
Why would I tell them not to say anything? It was Ray that was adamant about the area and whatnot, not me. I agree with them on a few things, like the colour of the ground and all that, but not, as far as I was concerned, it's not secret squirrel stuff.
Are you aware of any reason why Ray Kehlet or Darcy Keegan would lie about that?
No, don't know.
Regardless of who requested the location to be kept secret and whether or not there were ulterior motives for doing so, the fact is the group had a clear urgency to get to their secret location as soon as the weather would allow. And as noted in episode 1, there was a very clear desire to visit one particular mine shaft. This desire is evident in Jennie's final diary entry dated March 18, 2015, where she writes, "Hopefully go to hole, fingers crossed." According to Milne's account, the group finally arrived at the Bell Chambers region on the afternoon of March 19 and found a spot to set up camp. He explained they chose this specific location as it had some shade and a patch of grass that would be good for the dog. When questioned why they didn't camp closer to the area they'd designated as the $3 million patch, Milne claimed it was because it was harder terrain to reach and that Ray didn't want to scratch his car.
Is there any reason why you didn't attempt to go and camp closer to the $3 million patch when you arrived?
First of all, we had to find a way to get through there, through the creeks.
Is that the only reason?
Yes. It's not something you're just going to wander through the bush in. First of all, Ray didn't want to scratch his vehicle, which I don't blame him. So you just take your time and work out a good route, how to get there.
Ray's daughter Mel found this particular comment from Graham very odd, as her dad was not normally one concerned with scratching his vehicles on camping trips.
He wouldn't have taken it if he was worried about getting scratched. And when we used to go fishing, that track you have to go to get into the fishing spot is like so closed in that you're going to get your car scratched.
After beginning to set up the camp, Milne said some kangaroos appeared and Ella, the Kehlet's dog, took off on what would be the first of 3 incidents where she allegedly bolted after wildlife. As discussed in episode 1, this behaviour was very out of character for the elderly Great Dane, who lived on a farm and was very used to being around kangaroos. In a police interview, Milne is quoted as saying, "We had just positioned the vehicles when a couple of kangaroos cut across the camp toward the creek and the dog has gone after them." At the 2020 coronial inquest, Milne was asked why the dog was never tethered at the campsite despite allegedly running away multiple times.
Did they ever tie Ella up after they retrieved her on that first occasion she ran away?
They never tied her up in camp.
How many times did she run away, Mr. Milne?
3.
Do you consider it's likely that the Kehlets, being devoted dog owners, wouldn't tie Ella up if she ran away from camp more than once?
Well, I will be honest with it. If that's their choice and I can't tell them what to do with their dog, I wouldn't tell them what to do with their dog.
My question, Mr. Milne, was do you consider that it's unlikely or implausible?
Probably unlikely.
Do you consider it particularly implausible when the Kehlets are aware of the existence of mine shafts in close, well, I shouldn't say close, in proximity to the campsite?
Yes.
Mr. Milne, do you think it's likely that Ella would remain in the general area of the camp for days after 22nd of March if she was prone to running away and chasing animals?
Well, maybe there wasn't any more animals in the area. I don't know.
You've referred to Ella chasing a kangaroo or kangaroos. Can you tell me how long it took in order to retrieve Ella?
It was about an hour and a half.
And who retrieved her?
Ray caught her.
Milne stated it took the Kehlets about an hour and a half to find Ella and bring her back to camp. When they got back, Graham says that he and Ray went for what he called a tiki tour on the quad bikes, with the purpose of showing Ray some previous locations Graham had visited before. When queried if they stopped at any mine shafts on this tour, Graham says they did stop at one.
Mr. Milne, did you stop at any mine shafts on this trip that you took on the afternoon of the 19th?
Yes, that one, that where the crystals were.
And is that the first hole?
Yes.
And again, you haven't spoken to police or told police about the first hole or that mine shaft with crystals during your interviews, have you?
Don't know.
And did you stop at any other mine shafts along the route that you took that day?
Yes, up on top of the hill, up there. Showed them the one that I've been down there.
It was after this that Graham stated something else of significance happened while he and Ray were out on this tour. It's a claim we'll explore in much more detail in a future episode and involves Ray and Graham coming across 2 other people about 600 metres away in a white 4-wheel drive who were allegedly shooting in the distance. According to Milne, Ray then got out his rifle and fired off 2 shots at one of Graham's cigarette packets they placed in a tree. He said this was a means of warning the other shooters that they were in the area as well. After the tiki tour, Graham said they settled in for an early night back at camp as it had been a big day of travel and they had plans for exploring and making their way to the $3 million patch the following day. Milne says the group woke at daybreak on the 20th of March, had breakfast, did the camp dishes and headed a few kilometres east to clear a track across the creeks towards the $3 million patch. After this, he said they got back to camp around midday, and at this time, Graham claims Ella bolted once more.
And you have referred to Ella bolting. Can you explain what caused her to bolt on that occasion?
No, I'm not sure what made her take off that time. She was with Jen and they were probably 100 metres or so away from camp, closer to the creek. Yes, that's about it. And she just yelled to the dog, trying to get the dog back. Dog gone. Ray was gone. He took off one way and I took off another. He found her and we came back.
And so did you take off on your respective quad bikes?
Yes, I never rode their bike at all.
Do I understand from your evidence that that Ray found Ella?
Yes.
And brought her back?
Yes.
And how long did that take?
Roughly hour to hour and a half.
Graham said they then went for another ride on the quad bikes around 1 or 2 p.m. and returned back to camp around 4 or 5 p.m. Again, it was another early night, as Graham said the plan for the next day was to pack up camp and move across to a new campground closer to the $3 million patch. The group awoke at daybreak, and Graham claims that Ella bolted once more. And it was at this stage he said he lost his patience for chasing the dog. He says he made it clear to Ray and Jennie that he'd come out to prospect and not to chase dogs. He then let them know they could borrow his quad bike to find the dog, while he set off on foot to go prospecting by himself for the day.
And then the following morning, what happened? What time did you get up?
Well, it was about the same time. It was about daybreak.
And then what happened?
Breakfast was about 7 o'clock-ish, 7:30, I'm not sure. 7, I think, around about there. Dog took off.
And what caused the dog to take off on this occasion?
Not sure. I assume it was kangaroo. I'm not sure.
Mr. Milne, do you have a recollection of what happened after the dog bolted, irrespective of which direction it went?
Yes.
And what happened?
Jen got on my bike, Ray got on his. They went in opposite directions to round the pup up.
Graham then goes on to describe how he spent an hour or so cleaning up camp and then packed some food and water to set off for his solo prospecting expedition.
Is it accurate to say, Mr. Milne, that you went out prospecting for essentially, roughly, 18 hours?
Yes.
And I acknowledge it's the case you didn't have a watch, did you?
No, because the more metal you've got on you, being on the wrist, if you find anything when you're tracking it across, interferes with the metal detector.
How many sandwiches did you take with you?
There would have been 4 pieces of bread.
2 sandwiches and 2.5 litres of water?
Yes.
Would you consider that to be a reasonable amount of food and water for 18 hours?
Yes, for that close proximity to the camp, yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, basically within earshot of the camp.
Do you mean that you were close enough to the camp to return if you needed something?
Yes.
Did you return to the camp before, roughly 2 or 3 o'clock that following morning?
No.
And I apologise if I've already asked the question, but just to confirm, you didn't sleep during the 18 or so hour period that you went prospecting?
No.
You didn't take a swag with you or anything like that?
No.
You didn't return to the camp at any point to have a quick sleep?
No.
Why not?
I didn't require to. I didn't need it.
And did you see Ray and Jennie when you returned to the campsite?
No.
Did you hear Ray and Jennie?
No.
What did you think they were doing, or where did you assume they were?
Sleeping.
And what did you do when you returned to the campsite?
Finished off packing up my stuff, put it in the back of the car and tied the quad down and 4 points and backed off, drove away.
Did you speak to the Kehlets before you left?
No.
Why not?
They were sleeping, I assumed.
And did you think to wake them or to speak to them, despite them being asleep?
No, I wouldn't wake them that hour of the morning, and if it was prearranged that I was leaving anyway, so no, I wouldn't wake them.
Can you expand on why you wouldn't necessarily wake them if you had been out for 18 hours and the last time you had seen them, the dog had run off?
No, you just don't wake people that hour of the morning when they know that I was leaving anyway. It would be a bit inconsiderate, I think.
This is a pivotal part of Milne's story, as this is the last time he claims to have seen Ray and Jennie before they disappeared. It's also important to note the time Graham claims this happened, around 7 or 7:30 a.m. He claims he then left camp and didn't return until approximately 2 to 3 a.m, spent about an hour packing up, and departed from camp between 3 and 4 a.m. He claims to have been prospecting solo without going back to camp for 18 hours straight. Before we get into the details as to why this is such an extraordinary claim, we also need to take into account what Milne claims next happened. Milne says, without having any sleep whatsoever after his marathon prospecting session, he packed up camp and left to head back to Perth between 3 and 4 a.m. GPS data shows that Milne arrived back at his home in Medina, just south of Perth, at 8:15 p.m, equating to a 16-hour journey home. The Mount Magnet route that Milne claims to have travelled would usually be a 785-kilometre route, taking about 8 to 9 hours to complete, making his 16-hour journey seem very questionable. In future episodes, we'll have a much closer look at the journey home, but for now, let's go back to that 18-hour prospecting session and talk about some reasons why this is such an extraordinary claim. Doug Taylor is a long-time Painsfind local who runs the local pub and roadhouse and is also a professional prospector. Have you ever heard of anyone doing a session like that?
Never. Not in all my prospecting days. I've never ever heard of someone going 18 hours straight, not find gold and not go back to camp and talk to his mates during the day, because they would have thought he's lost because he's been gone for 18 hours straight. There's no one does that. It's the biggest load of rubbish ever. Unless he found a big nugget and didn't want to tell them. But, you know, that's the only other scenario you can sort of possibly think of, because why do you plan a trip with a couple? You then go detecting for apparently 18 hours straight, then jump in your car without even seeing them and take off back to Perth. That's the biggest load of rubbish ever. A big no-no. Like, you would, even if you had enough, you would go to bed, go and see your mates in the morning and say, look, this is not working out, or I'm not finding gold, or whatever it may be, I'm going to leave. Or if you just want to leave or go to a different spot or whatever, that's what you generally do. If you're not finding gold after 3 or 4 days, you say, right, we'll pack up and we'll go here, here, here. You've got a little plan in your, before you leave Perth, you know what places or what leases you're going to go on. Just in case you're not finding gold there, you'll go and find another spot somewhere else and look around. That's what it's all about. And yeah, for him to do what he's done, they say he was a seasoned prospector. Well, doing what he done, I would say he's absolutely got no idea, and he's not a very good safety officer, because to drive after doing 18 hours straight is absolutely silly.
Other locals echo Doug's disbelief around the 18-hour prospecting claim. In the Sandstone region, it's not uncommon for extremely hot weather conditions to continue after the summer months through March, which I experienced myself when visiting the region. When speaking to Carol Hodgson and her son Matthew from Atlee Station, both long-time locals, they too are equally perplexed by the claim. Atlee Station is located just 8 kilometres south of the campsite at Bellchambers. It's now a cattle station, but was once a local watering hole over 100 years ago. The Hodgson family has been living out there for many decades. It's also interesting to note that Atlee Station had the pastoral lease for the area around Bellchambers. It's common courtesy to notify pastoral leaseholders before prospecting on their land. But it's important to note that Graham and Ray never contacted Carol at Atlee Station to let her know of their plans. I was able to sit down with Carol and her son while I was in the region. The story was the dog kept bolting and they had to keep chasing it, and Graham got fed up and went prospecting by himself. And he says he went at about 8 or 9 in the morning and didn't come back till 2 or 3 in the morning, which is about 18 hours in March out here. What do you say to that idea as a local?
Full of shit. The only way is if he took his car, whatever, and he decided to have a huge nana's nap. You know, he fell asleep or something in his car, because there's no way you'd prospect for that amount of time.
It's a long time, because even when we're filming, you're struggling after a couple of hours.
Well, don't forget, he would have had a metal detector, which is basically strapped to you, which has the battery and all that to you. So that's even, I mean, I know he was fit, apparently he's fit, but I mean, still, even all the locals in town, most of them go out for so long, have a rest, you know, but maybe they go out in the morning and they're back before it gets really hot, depending, on the weather, but I've never heard of anyone going out for that length of time.
And then the story continues. He got back to camp, made a cup of tea, got in the car and drove back to Perth.
Crap. Wasn't he a safety officer? Isn't that classed as fatigue back in the mining industry? Yeah, no.
Another point that was raised multiple times in conversations around this alleged 18-hour prospecting session was around what Ray and Jennie would have been doing during this time frame, and what their potential state of mind would have been if the friend that they had come camping with had not been back to camp for such a long period of time. 18 hours is a very long time for someone to be gone in such a remote location without coming back to camp. Once he hadn't returned for lunch, their concern for his welfare would have been significant. Perhaps at this time they would have set out on their quad bikes to look for Graham to ensure he was okay. And having not found him, their concern would only have increased as nightfall came, with still no sign of Graham. It's at this stage Ray and Jennie would have quite possibly jumped in one of their vehicles and driven the 30 kilometres to the town of Sandstone to raise the alarm that their friend was potentially in trouble. They then would have likely returned to camp, worried sick and unable to sleep. They would have kept the campfire burning, stayed up, anxiously waiting for their friend to return. Sleep would have been the last thing on their minds. When he finally arrived at around 3 a.m, they would have been equal parts upset and relieved, and only then been able to rest, knowing he was safe. Additionally, having camped out there myself, the darkness is no joke. Dave sums it up saying,
But if you walk over there, like literally 6 feet past that campfire, without your head torch on, you will not be able to see a thing, like zero. Not in front of your face. So there's no moon up tonight, which is what it was like over that weekend. There was no moon. So as soon as you walk past the light source, which in this case is campfire, you cannot see where you're moving at all. So the sun goes down at 6:30, a la tonight, 6:30, and until between 3 and 4 in the morning. So what's that work out to? 8 or 9 hours. 8 or 9 hours out there, because that's the direction that he claims to have gone. 8 or 9 hours, and this is after 10 hours of daylight as well, so 18 hours total, out there prospecting alone. I mean, fuck me, seriously, like, just, there's no words for it. It's so fucking ridiculous.
At the start of this episode, we read out the statement from family 1 year on from the tragedy. In it, they talk about Ray's funeral, in which they were able to commemorate and celebrate Ray's life. Family and friends from across the years gathered for the occasion, but there was one notable person missing. The friend who had trained and guided and encouraged Ray to go on the trip did not attend. In fact, he had not reached out to the family once to offer his condolences or support in the wake of the tragedy that he was such a central figure in. Ray's daughter Mel explains in her own words.
I've never heard anything from him, no. I haven't heard nothing. If things went the way that he said they went, why has there been nothing? It doesn't make sense for there to be no reach out and say, oh, you know, sorry that this has happened this way. Like, if his chain of events happened that way, what's happened since doesn't make sense. Just like all of the other stories.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing you do, no matter what, is contact the family and go, what can I do to help? I'm so sorry. I helped them plan the trip. Nothing at all.
As far as I'm aware, no communication with any of the family members.
If he was so friendly with Ray and Jennie, he would reach out to the family. He was the last person to see them alive that we know of. You would think that he would come forward and offer his condolences at least, but nothing.
Additionally, when I spoke to Graham's estranged stepson, Rob, he was shocked to learn that Graham didn't reach out to family members in the wake of the tragedy.
I'm pretty sure if your friend has gone missing, you'd be shouting the rooftops and trying to obviously help because you're searching, but...
You'd probably go to the funeral as well, right?
He didn't go? Fuck me.
In future episodes of Some Kind of Closure, we'll continue to explore the key details of Ray and Jennie's final trip, speaking with family members, experts, and others closely connected to the case. If you or anyone you know has information about this case, you can contact us via our Facebook page, The Man in the Hole. As the series unfolds, we're hopeful that more people will come forward with insights that could help piece together a clearer picture and ultimately bring the families some kind of closure and hopefully justice. It's also important to note that a $2 million reward is currently being offered for information leading to a conviction in this case. This is one of the largest rewards in Australian history, offering a powerful incentive for anyone with knowledge to come forward. If you have any information related to this case, please contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Even the smallest details could make a huge difference. That number again, 1800 333 000. We acknowledge the Badimaya people of the Yamaji Nation as the traditional custodians of the lands where this episode was recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their enduring connection to this unique and beautiful place. Thank you for listening to Some Kind of Closure. If you found this episode valuable, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's a quick, free way to support the show, and it really helps us reach more people. This is a fully independent production. If you'd like to support the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Just get in touch via our Facebook page. Lastly, we acknowledge the presumption of innocence for all individuals discussed in this series. Any opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers. Thanks again for listening.
We've only got one side of the story.
They were just everyday people.
We find Jenny, we will find out what happened.
And the truth will prevail.